Hi, my name is Yasmin Terehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Renee Garcia, a repeat guest and a leading advocate for reality transurfing and the author of Quantum Capitalist. As the founder of the International Transurfing Institute and the host of Transurfing TV, Renee is dedicated to making transformative knowledge accessible to those seeking to master their reality. And with her extensive experience and innovative approach, Renee has significantly influenced the field, helping countless individuals reshape their lives and reach new levels of personal success. And her mission continues to inspire and empower people worldwide to navigate their own paths towards profound transformation. As I stated, Renee has been on our show before, and this time we're actually going to dive into her latest book, Quantum Capitalist. So welcome to the show, Renee.
Thank you for having me, Yasmin. Happy to be here again.
Likewise, so excited to have you here. And I just finished reading Quantum Capitalist, which was amazing.
Wow, you've read it? Oh my
I
gosh.
I like sped read it. Yeah, it
Oh
was.
my gosh. Really? I think you're the first person because it's only been out a while. So, yeah, you're the first person who I've heard has read it from front to back. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had to like negotiate with Amazon to like get the book in my hands before I left for this trip. And so it
Oh,
was this
wow.
whole ordeal, but it was, and it's amazing. I feel like it's so practical and accessible and takes all the transurfing knowledge and makes it really digestible for everyone. So
Love
to
it.
kick to kick it off, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the book and many chapters in the book, but to kick it off, just for people who are listening, they might be new to you, they might be new to transurfing and this work, but I'd love to understand your perspective on what you call the matrix.
Good starting point. Well, I think the Matrix is really just a more practical, down to home sort of version of the movie. We are sort of trapped in a labyrinth of programming and media and social media and environmental desires, if you will, for our actions in this world. We now have human energy being one of the most valuable commodities. We see this with everything online constantly vying for our time and attention and energy and money. And it's getting more violent, if you want to call it that. The desperation has hit a fervor point where we're just constantly being pulled as human beings into all sorts of directions. And this act of not understanding that this can happen or that this is happening, and the inability to take back control over all of the external entities always vying for our attention. If this is left unmanaged, it will not lead you to a good place. It'll consume you. And I believe that this is why a lot of people in the world right now don't have the life that they want, or not living the reality that they want. One, the matrix convinces us that there's just one sort of reality, and if you don't adhere to that one, then you're a weirdo, or there's something wrong with you, or you're going to fail, or it's a pie in the sky dream. And then it goes about taking our molded minds to adhere to the convention that it's pitching to us, and it locks us in with the infinite number of distractors that it presents to us on a daily basis. And this is all happening. The way that I like to describe it is, when you get a mosquito bite and you don't feel the mosquito stick its stinger in. You just realize it after it's on you. Nobody ever sees the stinger go in. They just know that they've got a mosquito on them after it's already too late. Well, this is kind of what the Matrix does to us. It sort of numbs us and then takes control of us. And there it happens. Lots of people stay asleep to this, and some people wake up to this. Some people weave in and out of lucidity and matrix lullabies, as I call them. And we're just in a constant state of trying to, I think, reconcile our place within this worldly structure and gain control. And quantum capitalist is about taking back that control.
Mm. Beautiful. That's I love the way that you describe the matrix. And in your book, I think you also include this word of like a prepackaged life or something along those lines, which I love that because I think a lot of us are not aware that we're sort of being directed as opposed to directing our lives, right?
Yes.
And I want to actually double click on this idea of waking up, from the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to wake up in transurfing, and especially as a quantum capitalist? What's for people listening, maybe what's one way that they could start to wake up?
Oh, I think the biggest way right now is really taking a hard look at where you're spending the majority of your time and in what activities. I heard some statistic about the current generation and their financial standing. And really, like, the statistic was about, I believe, the percentage of I think it was people over 27 that were that own their own homes, and it was so low. And we are seeing sort of a catastrophic misalignment of time and priorities with the younger generations. I'd say people under 40 right now, but also including people, of all. I mean, it encompasses everybody, but those years in your 20s and your 30s is the time to build, and create and um, get the time in and do what you need to do to get your life up and going. And this is all kind of squandered to YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and the amount of hours that people are spending online doing things that are not contributing to their evolution, their financial evolution, their personal evolution, their spiritual evolution. And I believe it's only going to it's only, not to sound like a complete nihilist here, but it's only going to get worse because the quote unquote matrix is becoming more clever every day on how to captivate our energy and our time and our attention. So waking up to what it is you're spending time on, and the main question that I ask myself, and I compel people that are coming to this knowledge to ask themselves, is get into a habit of systematically asking yourself throughout the day, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing it? And is it actually benefiting my life? Is it adding something to my reality? Is it helping me to build wealth? Is it helping me to become more spiritually grounded? Is it helping me to um, take care of myself? And I think that's kind of the alarming thing. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm an absolute, like I've mastered this stuff. I still get sucked into the occasional, what I call the doom binge death scroll or, a Netflix binge. But when I do it, I know that I'm doing it and I'm limiting the amount of time that I'm doing it because I know that if I do it too much, it just takes away from what I could actually be using my time and attention and energy to accomplish something like writing a book or filming videos or helping people or engaging with people in beneficial ways. So waking up is really just an act of really starting to pay attention to how you are hooked into the matrix and then learning how to manage that relationship.
Hmm. So that's such a great question to ask throughout the day. What am I doing right now? Is it benefiting me? And I think a lot of people don't take that inventory. Usually, they sort of ask these questions when things are going wrong.
Yes.
um, so I want to talk about what you say in your book are black holes, and what are the things that are taking most people off their path,
Mhm.
and how can they sort of get back on their path?
So I've pitched the knowledge in the book as kind of a astrophysics adventure. It's quantum mechanics and astrophysics, a very, very watered down version. But I like to pitch my reality transurfing practice to myself as I'm a rocket ship and I have the ability to travel to different versions of reality. But I need certain things to do that. I need a full tank of fuel. I need a healthy navigation system to help me understand where it's going and why I'm going there. I need to have a destination. There's all sorts of components to travel in a healthy manner to your next version of reality. Then there are things that you encounter that will take you off course. And one of those things, as I have pitched it in the book, are black holes, which are also referred to as pendulums in reality transurfing. But in my version, black holes are really just an entity that sucks you in, a vortex that sucks you in and diverts you from your path. And black holes are everything that we just discussed: social media, Netflix. It can be things like your professional environment or your family environment, your the culture that you're identifying with. It can be your political choice. It can be anything that anything that you think about, anything that captivates your attention and also consumes your energy. So, like a dysfunctional family environment, black hole. You could be sort of cruising along, doing your thing, maybe gaining some headway in your day, and you're doing something you like reading a book or involved in a creative project or doing something to further yourself professionally. And then all of a sudden you get sucked into this black hole, which could come in the form of a family member starting something up with you, an argument that you've had a million times, or you're doing something online and you're being productive, but then suddenly you find yourself on YouTube, watching a bunch of videos on who knows what. It's anything that's going to distract you really from your where you're intending to go, your destination.
Hmm. So, the black holes are pretty distracting and time consuming. And I love, this work to me is about really mastering your energy. And that feels like that's kind of like the underlying theme here is like you master your own energy, direct it to where you want to go, and as opposed to the world doing that for you. I
Yes.
want to, yeah, and I want to talk about you bring up some theories in physics like the many world theory, and then you also sort of complement that with the ideas of the sectors of reality. And that for me
Mhm.
was so revelatory when I learned it and has been just such an incredible tool to use in my day to day. And I mean, I'm sure that so many transurfers can say that their lives have just changed so much by applying this. But can you tell us, like, what is the many world theory? Is it many worlds theory or many world theory? I don't actually
I
know.
think it's actually the many worlds theory. Yeah, I was actually new to the term before I read this and the introduction by Chris Majeski in my book, and did a little research on it. And I was like, okay, that's where it originated. Good to know. But this is really, the basis of Vadim Zealand, his book Reality Transurfing. This is the basis for his book, and his philosophy of life is that there are an infinite number of versions of reality that are available to us, and when we fulfill certain requirements, we sort of turn on one of these versions of reality. And this is probably most best seen for the average person in like there if you call to mind a time in your life where you felt like everything was going good and you were on fire and you were climbing up and you were feeling positive about your life and your trajectory, and you're kind of hitting all the stops and feeling like you were on the up and up. And then take another time of your life when you felt the exact opposite. You were depressed, you couldn't get out of bed. When I say you, obviously, all of us have at least a version of this where we feel as though one day we're killing it and the next day we're back at square one and maybe struggling with some mental health issues, anxiety, depression, whatever. We're feeling a lot of self-doubt or meaninglessness. And this is really just a singular human being tapping into different variations of reality. That's why you could be walking down the street crying and another person's walking, in your direction laughing. There's different versions of reality that we have access to, and it's our thoughts and our action and our frequency that help us to navigate these different versions of reality. And this is why life oftentimes seems like a roller coaster. And reality transurfing or quantum capitalism helps you to understand when you're going down, why you're going down, and what you need to do to get back up. And when you're up, how to stay up and keep yourself from going down. For me, I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very sensitive person. I am affected deeply by my environment. So before I found reality transurfing, I was at the mercy of my environment. There were days where I'm just like, why? Why was I doing so good yesterday? And today I'm feeling like hell and I'm crying, or I'm upset about something from the past, or I'm, fearful of something in the future. Why? And when I found transurfing, I realized all the reasons why. And then I was able to take some control back and stop that sort of wild swing from high to low and stabilize more on an upper sector of reality, as I pitch it in my book. And the sectors of reality, it's so simple. Anybody can do it, and it's so effective. What I pitch is that you view reality as a number of levels that you can access on a daily basis. For me personally, I like to think that there's 10 levels. 10, number 10 is the top best level. This is me doing good in business, having nice relationships, feeling good about myself, getting exercise, sleeping well, eating well, treating myself to something nice. This is me having a positive experience of life. And then number one is the place that I don't want to go. It's the dungeon, it's the basement of reality. This is me waking up in the morning, not wanting to get out of bed, having anxiety, depression. Maybe I'm drinking alcohol. Maybe I'm arguing with people. I've got dysfunctional relationships. And then there's the levels in between. And the middle place is where a lot of people are currently. This is kind of complacent mode. This is maybe not feeling like the world's the best, but it's not the worst, and kind of just like resigning to what it is that you currently have. We call it the suspended state. And then, the idea is to get yourself up to those upper levels of reality and stay there. Because when you can stay there for an extended period of time, it's like it starts to your worldview, your life, your reality as you're experiencing it, it kind of starts to come together and stack upon itself in a way where you're actually building something, you're creating something, you're creating a reality that you feel happy living in. And then when you start to go down, this knowledge helps you to pinpoint very quickly, oh yes, that black hole sucked me in, the toxic family member, the boss that has been on me, and it's a job that I've been wanting to leave for a decade, getting sucked into hours of doom scrolling and lowering your emotional state because of that. It helps you pinpoint it very, very quickly. And then you can sort of navigate through the sectors of reality and understand your place in it. And I think this understanding your place in it is really the key, because then you have some power. It's when we don't, and we're just kind of floating around in space and we don't know why we're experiencing what we're experiencing or how to change it. This is sort of the danger zone. And this is exactly what the knowledge is about, is to help you to get out of there and take back control.
Hmm. So, and what about, in terms of, you talk about level 10, going up to this amazing day, and that most people are quite complacent. Definitely agree with that. Just even in conversation, I find that most people are sort of in a repetitive life, like the same, it's like Groundhog's Day every day.
Yes.
I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
This sounds just terribly boring, really. But what are some practical tips that you can encourage people, to get to these upper levels? Like, what's like one or two things that you would suggest that people do, or try?
Well, black hole management is huge. Really starting to dissect and pay attention to what is getting your energy and attention, and why you're giving it, and what you're getting in return. I've had a few people reach out to me and say, I would never buy a book that has the word capitalist in it, And I'm like, well, you don't understand. Quantum capitalists. A lot of people are trying to capitalize off of the matrix right now. And that's why a lot of people are spinning their wheels, is because the matrix is, there's lots of trying to push and pull you into conformity. There's lots of standards. Hey, buy this car. Oh, you've got to have this house. Oh, you've got to do this. You've got to be like this. You've got to act like this. You've got to talk like this. And all of these ways in which the matrix attempts to push and pull us into conformity, it's capitalizing off us. Quantum capitalism is about you realizing and recognizing the ways in which this is happening to you, and then you taking back your energy and channeling it into something that's real for you. And the way that you find something that's real for you is by strengthening your bond with the quantum field. So this is, really about you finding what it is that's part of you already in another reality that you maybe haven't accessed yet. Like for me, the book, 10 years ago, if anyone would have told me that I was going to write a book on this type of topic, I would have laughed because it's not who I was. But in another version of reality, it was, because that version of reality was birthed in a real place. That's the quantum field. It wasn't, like you said in the beginning of our conversation, a prepackaged reality fed to me by the Matrix. This is something that my heart really wanted to discover and find. This was something that I was going to be good at. I just didn't know it yet. So it's about discovering what it is that's going to make you feel alive and fulfilled and like you have purpose in your life. This modality is very, very goal based. It's, in my opinion, that we find our true happiness when we've taken back the energy that we've been giving to the black holes in our lives, and then channeling that energy into a specific endeavor that makes us feel like our heart is on fire. That's sort of where it's at. So it's kind of a two-way thing that's happening here. You're taking back what's yours that you're giving for free and not getting much in return, and then you're channeling it into something that is going to give you returns, that is going to really help you to feel like you just taken the biggest bite out of life. And if you can hack that equation, you're in. Because after that, it's like you're in another type of system. You're out of the matrix system, you're into the quantum field system, and you've followed my work. You've seen my evolution and you've seen the different things that I've done. This was all me just sort of going with the flow of the new system that I tapped into. But I have to keep myself from reverting and getting sucked back into the old system, old me, matrix, standards, convention, all of that type of stuff. And I know this is a mouthful. This is like, oh my God, well, how do I even start to do this? But when you're learning the system, and I feel like I've laid it out as best as I can in the book, you move through it, and it's like, I'll give the same analogy that I give for transurfing. It's like you're building a puzzle. You start with that one piece, and then you start to notice, oh, okay, these pieces look like they'll fit. And then you put those pieces on, and then suddenly you're building a picture, and you're like, okay, I can see it now. Yes, I can see it. And then once you start to see it, and the pieces are a little more obvious, then they all just start fitting into place more easily. And before you know it, you've built your puzzle, and in this case, it's your worldview, your perspective of life, your experience of reality.
Mm. I love that analogy of the puzzle piece because, I think that most people, from what I can assess too, are afraid of the unknown. They sort of want to hold on tight to what's been fed, like you mentioned, these prepackaged ideas of what makes a good life. And I think what I love most about this work is that people oftentimes are sacrificing themselves to make that capital. But in this scenario, one is actually in a creative expansion while also becoming a capitalist or bringing in that money, right? Because there's an interesting experience in culture where I think a lot of us are sort of fed into the belief that in order to make a lot of money, we have to grind it out, we have to work for an employer, we have to put in the hours and in hours into something we don't want to do. And oftentimes that zaps our energy, as opposed to when you're in a creative flow, like what the place that you're in, there's an expansive energy. There's actually you're getting energy from the work that you're doing. And I feel like that's such an important point to talk about.
Oh, yes. It's so true. I've been an entrepreneur almost my entire adult life. So I've been blessed with, never really having to conform to corporate America. But there were times in my life where I didn't like what it was that I was doing. It didn't satisfy me creatively or spiritually. And yeah, I was like grinding it out every day and hustling until the breaking point. And I got really good at convincing myself that hustling and grinding was really like where it was at. And I still hustle and grind in a completely different way. Now hustling and grinding for me is like writing the book, like getting in there and staying in that zone for as long as I can. But when I step away from it, I'm not like I'm not filled with doubt and dread. Oh, what happens when I can't go anymore? Or what, all these things that a lot of, the matrix. And this is why I'm an advocate against classic hustle culture. I used to love characters like Gary Vee, because they were presenting these ideas that reinforce this, like, go hard. And now go hard for me is like sleeping for 8.5 hours and waking up and going for an hour and a half walk in the forest with my dogs and then meditating for an hour. That's like going hard for me now. And a lot of people in my life don't understand how it is that I live. How do you make money? How do you live? How do it seems like you just have all the free time in the world. And I do, but I've also developed a very deep state of trust that what I what I truly need, not what the matrix tells me that I need, but what I truly need to feel whole and fulfilled and alive, the quantum field will provide me with the ideas and the means to achieve what it is that I need. And then I use the matrix as my tool. The matrix is mine to use, not it using me. It's really just about flipping the perspective around.
Hmm. I love that. And I want to actually ground this into an example because I think people are going to ask this when they listen to this conversation and hopefully get your book. But for someone who is, let's say, stuck in the same job and same salary, let's say for many years, um, you know, and I think since you're able to sort of move out of these scenarios pretty fast, what's kind of the first piece of advice that you'd give someone who's been stuck at this space? And also, what would be like the feeling state and the emotional state that you would coach them in? Because I think that's also a piece of it that is pretty new for people as well, like the practicing the emotion and the feeling state.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. I have many people in my life that are going through this right now. And again, what I suggest people do is pay attention to where your time and your attention and your energy is going. And I know you're saying people that have like a 9 to 5.
Mhm.
So what typically happens, what I typically see is people are unhappy with their job. They go to work, they come home, and then they plop down on the couch and they doom binge, death scroll, and YouTube and Netflix until it's time to go to bed. And they just remain unhappy and they're just stuck. And there's actually a window to an alternate reality right in front of them, but they don't see it. They can't see that the time that they're spending outside of work is way, way, way more valuable than they give credit for it. It's like, even if, and I have coached many people to just start with 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day. Get a journal when you get home from work or you get finished with whatever it is that you do with the majority of your day. Take your journal, go sit in a quiet place in your yard or on your patio or in your home office or drive to a park or whatever, and just sit for an hour and write down ideas of things that you think you would like to do. Well, maybe I want to start a podcast. Maybe I want to start a new, maybe I want to get into baking and my dream is to have a bakery, or maybe I want to become a photojournalist, or whatever it is. You have to have that seed. And I think the thing that stops people a lot is they don't know what it is that they want to do, so they just don't do anything. They just opt out of making any new choices. But it's in taking a step in any direction that opens the door to lots of new options coming in. I know in this space, we hear the term inspired action all the time. Inspired action, become inspired. Well, this is a very toxic trap, I believe, that keeps a lot of people stuck because people feel as though they can only take action if they feel inspired to take action. But the reality of it is, if you're waiting for inspiration, you're just stuck in a loop where you're waiting for inspiration, the inspiration doesn't come, so you wait. And it just feeds itself, and you end up being complacent and doom scrolling and watching Netflix and going to bed late, waking up unrested, going to a job you hate. So it's really about learning how to take a step in any direction, any direction. It's not written in stone. You don't have to sign your name in blood. You can take a step in any direction and do that thing until the next thing presents itself. I'm going to go to the park every day after work and journal for an hour. You know what? I bet you if you did that for a week, something would pop into your mind and seem like a viable option. Then, when you've arrived at, okay, this actually seems like something that I would be interested in, start doing research on that thing, talk to people that are doing that thing, and then it starts to click. Then you can access all kinds of information and other variables, as I call them, that might present something even better to you. And this is really just how I live my life. And I know it sounds kind of wild, like, well, how does that work exactly? And transurfing is huge into this concept of signs. When you really begin to open your eyes and pay attention to the signals and cues that reality is presenting to you infinitely on a daily basis, um, you're you have connected to the quantum field, and life at that point becomes about choosing the better options that are presented to you, because there's always options.
Mm.
And in transurfing and quantum capitalism, we talk about how what you focus on always increases, exponentially increases. So if you start to view the opportunities in your reality, no matter how small they are, and you begin to focus on them, many, many more opportunities will come in your direction for sure.
I love that. I think also this exercise of journaling, it feels like this is a very important piece in your book because every chapter there's a journal prompt. Why is journaling so important for folks to shift? And do you also still journal, yeah, every day, even though you're sort of on the flow, in the
Yeah.
flow? Yeah.
I don't journal every day. I I kind of get into a flow, and then I feel like I'm going, and I sort of ride that, but then I pull the journal out when I have become complacent, or when I have seemingly hit a dead end, or when I feel like a mix up is needed. And I mix my reality up a lot. Like I am in a constant state of changing locations, changing the way that my day looks, countries. Like I'm mixing it up a lot. But when I find that groove, I kind of run with it until something compels me to shift, and then the journal comes out. And then it really just becomes about writing down various actions I can take, various things that I'm interested in, something that somebody said to me that caught my attention. I write it down. Somebody said, "Oh, hey, have you ever thought of, this?" And then I recall it, I write it down, and then if any thoughts come after that bit of advice of actions I can take, I write them down. And this, I think, is a very powerful practice, because if we don't write something down in the physical world, it just remains abstract ideas or thoughts in our minds just floating around. And with that ever present draw from the matrix, look at this, watch this, consume this content, you're not going to get anywhere, because the matrix will override all of those abstract thoughts in your head and just kind of delete them. So that's why it's important to give yourself writing prompts in reality, like, okay, these are the things I can do to explore this option, these are the different avenues that I can take, these are the things that I've encountered lately that I like, that I want to expand on and learn more about. And what I do is I write these things down, and to a lot of people it would probably just look like absolute scribbling, and at times it is, but it's at my computer, and I spend a lot of time at my desk. So it's like right there in my face, and I can't ignore it. If somebody sends me a link to something and I click on it and I start watching, some YouTube video that really isn't benefiting me, and then I look down and I see my list, I'm like, "Oh, right." Oh, yes. Okay, back to, like, I'm in a continual state of bringing myself back to what I know takes me someplace, and keeping myself from going someplace that is going to take me nowhere, going to something that's going to take me nowhere. And that's really all it's about. It's about pulling those ideas out of your mind, putting them into physical reality, and then not just tuning out of them, staying tuned into them. And this is a lot of where this is how I found success in my life.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the 4 qualifiers that you write about in your book. Why do they matter so much for becoming a quantum capitalist?
Oh, this is such a juicy subject. And this is where accountability is like, once you read this in the book, I mean, you can ignore it and just write it off. But if you take the idea of the 4 qualifiers and you keep that close to you, it's like you can no longer run from yourself. There's nowhere to hide. You got to face the music of what you've been creating in your reality via these 4 qualifiers, which is your thoughts, your actions, your frequency, and what I call your guiding theory. So the guiding theory is sort of the place where it starts. So my example in the book is my guiding theory before I started on my path of spiritual development was that I have what I have, and I'm a flawed person, and I had horrible poverty mentality, crippling poverty mentality, and I was, even though I had found some success in my life, I was still very, very complacent, and I was a victim. And this theory then manifested in the remaining parts of my 4 qualifiers, my thoughts, my actions, and my frequency. So if I felt like, oh, this is just what it is that I have, I wouldn't take any new actions because why would I? This is just what I have. My thoughts would be along the line of somebody that is just accepting their lot in life. And then my frequency corresponded to that stuff. So I would have kind of like this woe is me frequency, or feeling like a victim, or blaming my life for not delivering, something better. And I was kind of just wallowing in this toxic 4 qualifier soup, if you want to call it that, and not feeling the best about my life, my direction, and my thoughts and my actions mirrored that stuff, and it kept me on those lower sectors of reality. Once I realized what I was doing, and once I developed a new guiding theory for myself, and I decided to take higher actions, and I started to really monitor the quality of my thinking and start playing devil's advocate for my thinking, going back and, having a thought like, well, I can't do something like that. Oh, I don't know how to write a book. Now, wait a second. Who who says that somebody's more capable of writing a book than you? Where did you first encounter something in your life that presented this idea that you're not capable of writing a book, and why did you eat that? Why did you consume that? And start to really like get in there and start rearranging those puzzle pieces, get in there and start to rework it. And it's not instant. And I still go down from time to time. I'm a human being like everybody else. I'm definitely not on level 10 all the time with my thoughts and actions and frequency always up. But when I do take a dip down, I can very quickly say, oh, yesterday that black hole sucked me in and my thoughts aligned to whatever information, lower information I encountered. And then I got a little complacent and I didn't take action. And then I was doom scrolling a little bit. My frequency was down. And then all of a sudden, reality looks just a little bit grimmer, and then I catch myself and I know exactly what I need to do to get myself out of there and get myself back up. And as soon as I pivot, that pivot point, that moment of accountability of where my time's going, what snagged me, how my thoughts were affected, how it affected my actions, as soon as I can pivot out of that spot and redirect myself, then momentum starts to happen. And then I climb up those layers again, those sectors of reality. And when you start to really adopt this way of looking at things, life just gets so much easier. It's like all that guessing work is gone. You become you're the puppeteer. You're no longer the puppet.
Mm. It's fascinating. I love the four qualifiers, and it also puts, I think, the responsibility back in your field, in your world, right? Like you can't really blame the outside world anymore because
No, yes, blame is out the door at that point. Yeah.
right, right. And so this also leads us into the next question, which is, what is the mirror and what is our algorithm?
Mm, yeah, this is really where reality starts to become fun, and also darkly fun, when you fall back a little bit and you realize that all reality is doing is mirroring back your actions and attitude and beliefs that you present to it. Reality is only mirroring back what you're putting out. And when you accept this and learn to work with it, it's like the most wildly entertaining game of, of life, because you can be in a situation and something's going down, and just stop yourself and be like, okay, wait, what am I presenting to my world that I'm getting this type of response back? And then you have the power to change what you're emitting, and you can see instant shifts. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most remarkable things that we see sometimes in the transurfing community, is people talking about. I think there was somebody the other day in the Facebook group that had some really toxic boss at work, and she just started to do some tricks that are in transurfing to kind of transmute that energy. She was seeing her boss as this toxic character, which she was, but she wasn't. The person relaying the story wasn't exactly. They were buying into that version of their boss, and they weren't understanding their role within that equation. And this is where it goes really deep, because even just a simple thought, or how you listen to someone, or your response to somebody else's toxicity or undesirable trait, can keep that loop of negativity going. And it's wild to think that we actually have the ability to control other people and their attitude just by what we're presenting to them in their presence. And when you start to play with this type of energy, it's mind blowing, because you're like, wait a second, how is this possible? How am I having a thought in the presence of the same person that I've encountered every day forever, and a simple thought and way that I am engaging with them, how can it shift them out of that negative state into a positive state? But it's powerful and it works. And that's an example of just like doing some of these concepts with a singular person, practicing some of these concepts with a singular person, but it also happens in a really big way where if you step out into your world, and I can honestly say after practicing this stuff for 10 years now, like I feel as though I'm finally getting the hang of it. I present to my world what it is that I want to see come back to me. I present that to my world. If I want to be an author, my 4 qualifiers have to be dialed in to that author version of me. I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be a great author. And my thoughts and my actions and my frequency align to that guiding theory. And I go into my world and I present that to my world. And then, sure enough, like a flash, my world agrees with me. Yes, you're an author. And when you understand how this works in small ways, you can build on it, and it just continues to 10 years in. I've been practicing this stuff every day, some days not doing the best with it, but still getting back up on that horse. And 10 years in, I'm like blown away. I mean, having this book come out and people leaving reviews on Amazon saying it's a masterpiece. I'm like, how I'm blown away at the knowledge I've been teaching for 10 years, and I'm blown away at the version of myself that this knowledge has allowed me to connect with. It's absolutely mind blowing. And this is a product of all the stuff that we've just spoken on. And it just continues to evolve. And when I tell my story and I speak about being, staying close to these concepts for 10 years, and then people say, I don't have 10 years. God, that seems like a long time. And I'm like, listen, the time is going to go by regardless. Don't you want to be mastering something in the meantime? I mean, learning the mirror concept, learning how to dial in your 4 qualifiers, staying connected to that. You will never, ever, ever be disappointed. It will lead you to the end of the rainbow, but you've got to you've got to change some of your thinking and get in there and learn the concepts and actually do the work.
Right, right. Right. It's, I think personal development right now is not like an option. I think people, I can't imagine, what one does in this lifetime, especially with so many things coming at them, right? Like what someone can do to live a really healthy life without participating in their own evolution and being aware of that. I sort of feel like that the time is sort of running out. So Renee, thank you so much for your time. Last couple questions. What has surprised you the most looking back on your journey?
I think the thing that really surprises me the most is I remember when I was about, I would say in my early 20s, mid 20s, and a boyfriend that was saying you don't want to do anything with your life, and you don't have any goals. And looking back on that time compared to now, I'm like, whoa, what what has happened? Like how, I I've transformed with this knowledge. And I have a story like many other people in this world, and we all have our, we all have our the things that have held us back in life, or the areas where we could place blame. And um, I have a ninth grade education. I didn't go to college. There's no real logical reason that I should be where I am today, but I'm here. And that's because I didn't accept reality as being static. And I continued to do things that I needed to do to make it happen for myself, even unconventionally. And the results of this have really, really surprised me. Yes, very surprising, pleasantly surprised, delightfully surprised.
So, where can people find your book? Where can they participate with some of your online courses? Where can they find you?
Well, I'm kind of all over this space now with quantum capitalists. It's yes, any way that you like to digest and consume knowledge, you can find it either with the International Transurfing Institute if you would like to study transurfing in the original text. There are 1,000 videos on Transurfing TV on YouTube. We have a number of extremely high quality courses that are available on the website transurfing.us. We have a very active and lively Facebook group, the International Transurfing Institute Facebook group. There's, I think, 11 or 12,000 people in there now. It's a pretty amazing place to maintain your connection with this knowledge. And you can get my new book, Quantum Capitalist, on Amazon. There is Quantum Capitalist TV that has all the audios for free. And we also have a Facebook group if you would like to connect with us. It's Quantum Capitalists. And yeah, lots of podcasts online. There's all sorts of ways that you could access me running my mouth on reality transurfing and quantum capitalists.
Love it. Amazing. Amazing. Renee, thank you so much for your time. This was so lovely. And I feel like we could have gone for another couple hours. So I'm just, I'm so grateful that you've put out this much knowledge for us to be inspired about and to really take agency over our life. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Yasmin. I really appreciate being here.
Oh. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about how to be a quantum capitalist and unhook from the matrix with Renee Garcia. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again. What would you like to see change in your life? And what is the biggest obstacle that you're facing now? I run a 5-week program at the Inner Knowing School for serious individuals who are ready to take the next step in their personal and professional lives. I will personally be coaching a small group of individuals, a number of practical tools and frameworks for creating an intuition practice and for self-mastery. You can find more at theinnerknowingschool.com. I have a master certification in intuition medicine, and I've condensed 10 plus years of experience and research navigating how to harness your energy and intuition in an easy to access live curated course. Now, as someone who's helped countless creatives, entrepreneurs, and many who are just plain stuck, open doors of possibility they never thought existed, I've seen this strategy transform people's inner states and external reality. And the best part is that you'll skyrocket your output and unlock your creative genius. I'll work with you weekly live to overcome your limiting beliefs and show you how to manage your energy instead of your time. I'll teach you how to create clarity, processes, develop your intuition based on some of the top tools and frameworks that I've developed. And you'll get access to guided meditations and visualizations not available anywhere else. This method is so effective that even if you don't have that much time, or if you think that you might not be ready, this will work for you. You can check out the link in the show notes to join the waiting list, and you can check out what past clients had to say about the program. Wishing you all many blessings ahead.